On today's episode of the Iron and Infrastructure podcast, I have a special guest. Guys, this show is going to be absolutely incredible. We spent a few minutes just kind of talking and catching up. So I'd like to introduce Jeremy Smith. And Jeremy, to start the show off, we just have to preface this whole entire show by saying, big ain't strong, strong is strong.
Yep.
Our good friend Tony Ramos' infamous quote. Let's start from the beginning. Jeremy, tell me about your background growing up and just give me a little bit of insight on who Jeremy Smith is.
Well, thank you for having me. Jeremy Smith is a 11-time world record holder. Broke the squat to be the lightest to ever squat, 700 pounds at 123. Lightest ever bench, 500 pounds at 123. The world record, 505 at 132. Then I broke the raw squat at 635 for 132. And then I did a little boxing on the side for Barstool Sports. Other than that, my life outside of the gym, I do sheet metal for Local 24. So I do a bunch of HVAC work for the big Intel, Amazon data centers that are coming into town. But yeah, other than that, I'm just an everyday guy.
So, first of all, the numbers that you just threw out there is absolutely freaking incredible.
Thank you.
I just want to say that. And I was not even going to try to introduce your resume at all because I knew that I would not do nearly as well as what it actually is. I couldn't give it justice like you just did. So first of all, that's incredible. Let's talk a little bit about, your childhood and upbringing, sports that you played, anything else. And
when I was a kid, I played football, baseball. I wrestled from kindergarten to 12th grade. I grew up in a middle-class family in southern Pennsylvania, so about an hour south of Philadelphia.
Gotcha.
Blue-collar family. My grandparents, both my grandfathers, they were blue-collar. One was a mason, one was a pipe fitter. So I grew up around hardworking men all my life. And, being different, being a dwarf, and growing up around those people, you don't get much slack, and that's for sure. So I think that's where I got a lot of my drive and motivation to go and do the things I was able to accomplish.
It's a cutthroat industry, blue-collar construction. I'm in the pipeline, part of it myself, and I grew up, and it's very cutthroat. No one gives a shit about your feelings.
No.
I've been smacked over the side of the head with a backhoe bucket more times than I'm proud to admit, just by looking the wrong way.
Right.
I cannot imagine though for you what you had to go through, but I'm sure, just going to assume that going through what you did has led you to achieving the greatness that you had to this point.
I would say so. I think a majority of the time spent, getting, that shit talked to, and it grows you as a person and makes your skin a lot thicker. Yeah. Especially my problems are very visual. Everybody else has their problems, but you could see I'm different, and I gotta outperform everybody to get to the standard.
You can't hide from it.
No, I can't hide from it. So I think that's the best thing to me. It's like we talked about earlier, Tony. Tony will perfect example. Tony is one of those people that will make you feel uncomfortable, but to be better for yourself.
Because he cares about you.
Yes.
Yeah, and if he's not talking shit to you, he probably don't care about you too much.
Right.
And I learned that pretty quick because he was the same way with me. Kind of took me under his wing too, especially going into Westside. I was terrified of that place. I mean, he was after me for probably a year before I would actually go there. So blue collar background. So let's talk about your family. Are you the only dwarf in your family? Is that a genetic thing or?
So I'm the only dwarf in my family. My brother's actually 5'10", 5'9". My mom's, average size. My dad's average size, but only dwarf in the family. And I think that was one of the things that when my parents first had me, the doctor was, came in and they were like, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we got something to tell you. Something's not right." And they're like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And she's like, "Well, your son, he's got to be short." And they're like, "Okay, what's that mean?" She's like, "Well, he's going to be short all his life." He's like, "Okay, can you emphasize on that?" And like, "Yeah, he has dwarfism." And they're like, "Okay, so he's just going to be short." He's like, "Anything else wrong?" They're like, "No." I'm like, what the hell, dude? That's what you came in rushing here to tell us?
That's wild.
So, when they brought me home, my grandparents, aunts, uncles, everybody was just like, "Okay, so he's just gonna be short. Like, yeah, all right, cool. We're just gonna raise him just like everybody else. So
I can't I can't hardly even put that into words like that. It would be a rush in to talk about that,
oh, yeah.
right? Like that's wild to me. So grew up middle class family, blue collar workers, like you said. Went to school, played sports. So you had a visual difference, but you lived a relatively normal life, right?
Yeah.
What kind of challenges did you face growing up, especially in the blue collar nature, with it being so cutthroat? You know, what kind of challenges did you face that someone like myself wouldn't understand?
I think, growing up, I've always had to find a different way to do things. You know, when I got into the blue collar industry, because I originally went to college for exercise science, and it was something I really never, like, I enjoyed working out, but I never wanted to go to school because I just hated school. Like,
Understand completely.
school sucked. So I was kind of like forced into going to school and figuring out what I wanted to do because I had a guidance counselor, and they're like, "Hey, what do you want to do with your life?" I was like, "I like working out." They're like, but
So go spend all this money to tell
right.
people how to work out.
But
Yeah.
like to them, working out, they didn't understand why I worked out because working out, it got me away from like the bullying and harassing and all that shit. I got into my own little zone there. So I went to college, dropped out to come over here, and then I found the blue collar industry in sheet metal, and just went. Growing up, I think I touched base, but growing up, you've always had to find something to go about a different, turn on the light switch. You might not think for you, it's an everyday thing. It's like this, that, the other. But I got to, all right, let me get this stick, turn this off.
And that's what I was looking for, stuff like that. I would never have thought of that, right?
Or
and
like,
so you had to be very creative and think outside the box from a very young age, which probably also really built a foundation of, mental capacity that people would never even know that existed, right?
So, put an example. The other day, I had to drive a grade off. There's like safety switches, right? Because if you go too far off the seat, the thing's going to shut off. And growing up, I always rode tractors and everything. And I always got like 20 pounds, 80 pounds worth of chain and threw it on the seat. And they're like, why are you wasting all that chain? It's like, look,
so it'll trip him.
Yeah. It ain't going to trip it. I can drive this. I can do everything you can do. Just let me put the counterweight on there so I can drive it. So,
but that's awesome though. That like from a young age, you had to think like that.
Dude, I had a story. My dad and my brother got this little Chinese motor, like he put on a mountain bike. My bike was always different. Like you had to cut down the scale a little bit. Well, they put it on my dad's mountain bike, and I always wanted to ride it. And I saw my brother going around. And he was like, "You want to try it?" I'm like, "Sure, yeah, I'll get on it. I'll do it." Fucking ripping around the yard. The only thing was I didn't know how to get off. Like, because you can't just put your leg down and get off. And I tell the story all the time. My dad and my brother, one was going to catch the bike, and one was going to catch me. So a couple laps around, and they timed it. And my dad was on the right, my brother's on the left. I bailed off to the left, and my dad caught the mountain bike. So I can do everything everybody else can do. It's just like figuring out one step more to doing it.
Yeah, and I have no idea of what that's like, but I can relate a little bit from racing motocross where, I would be 10, 11, 12 years old, and the bike that I had would only go so fast.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ride something faster. I wanted to have the big bike, right? And, I couldn't touch. I could barely start it, let alone, do anything else. So I remember having to like lean against a tree, and I maybe could get one foot on the ground, but more likely not. And then I would have like a milk crate to step up on or a bike stand, or I'd find a tree log, something to like get myself up there on. But I can't imagine having to, think that way with everything, right? So you've always had to find an edge in your life. And you talk about, exercise science. What got you into weightlifting? Was it just a therapeutic release or?
I think two things really. I wrestled, like I said, from kindergarten to 12th grade. I wrestled behind two of the best wrestlers to come through our school. And come my senior year, the state place winner at the time moved up a weight class, and the 106 spot was open. So, I made the most of the spot, and I was like, look, I should probably fall into lifting weights and like get a little bigger and see what happens. And, I just fell in love with it because it's more or less you're building yourself. And it's like you could see the self-improvement in it. And, when you're having a bad day or whatever, and for me, like everybody has bad days. It's like,
Mhm.
don't lie. It's like you're having a bad day, go to the gym and strength train or
Right.
lift weights and go under and
Your day's a lot better when you walk out than when
Right.
you walk in. Yeah.
right. So I think that's a majority where it came from, and then it just snowballed from there into, hey, how much can I actually lift?
Yeah. And the iron doesn't care,
No,
right?
doesn't
It
judge.
doesn't care that, you're short. It doesn't care that I'm tall. It'll break us both equally,
yeah.
right? It doesn't matter. It does
Right.
not discriminate no matter what. No matter who walks in that door, gender, color, skin, it does not matter.
No.
45 pounds is always 45 pounds.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is so great about the gym itself is you can walk into Westside Barbell and you got 10 dudes in there that are all savages trying to get better from every walk of life you could ever imagine.
Yep.
One guy might have got out of prison the night before. One guy might have left, church that morning after getting done
Yeah.
preaching, and they might be best friends.
Yeah.
Lifting weights. I call it iron brotherhood basically.
Yeah.
But like me and Treadway, we're close because we got introduced by lifting weights.
Right.
We trained at Westside a couple times, old school gym on and off for years. But our relationship is built on that foundation of
Right.
Mutual interest in the iron. But the iron does not discriminate. It
No.
will bury us all, and it has buried us all. But what you've done with the iron game is absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Westside Barbell. We got to go to this
Okay.
because Westside, I spent, I think, 3-4 years there. And so I must have been done going there right when you came in. You said about 2019.
Right. Yeah.
So talk about when you walked into Westside, what your lift numbers were,
Okay.
and then what happened during that time and how much it elevated you.
So I came to Westside around 2019, May-ish. I originally started an Instagram page. My ex-girlfriend at the time, she was like, you should start an Instagram page. I think you'd be very influential to other dwarfs, letting them see like how active you are in the community and what you do is pretty inspiring. So I was like, okay, cool. So I was lifting and I was squatting with a Westside shirt on. And I got a DM from them, and they're like, hey, you should come by the gym one time and come lift with us. And, me being me, I've watched Westside through the years, and all you see is, like, huge fucking...
Monsters.
Yeah, monsters.
Super heavyweights.
I'm like, why do you want me in there? So originally my thought was like, okay, this could be like a Make-A-Wish scenario.
Yeah, right.
Hey, thanks for coming. You did a good job. So I come in, and originally... I didn't know. I actually showed up late. The other day I was supposed to meet Lou and try out, see if I could use the monolift and what have you. So I wasn't able to meet Lou on the first day. But I came in on a Friday morning. We squatted with the girls. And he was like, hey, look, you're going to have to squat with the girls because all these other dudes squat astronomical weight.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool. So 4:45 trained, and a Jeep comes in. And it's Lou and his apprentice, Sanjay, at the time. And he's like, hey, man, what you doing? I'm like, hey, how are you? And he's like, oh, you here to squat? I'm like, yeah. He's like, how much you squat right now? I'm like, 551. He's like, oh, that's pretty good. He's like, we're going to see what you can do today. I'm like, okay, cool. So we were supposed to do dynamic work. Well, push came to shove. He's like, we're going to max out, see what you can do. I'm like, okay. So we kept throwing bands, kept throwing plates on. And I forget what I squatted, like maybe 6 something that day, and I never squatted anything over 550. So I just added 50 pounds onto my squat. And I'm
Just
like,
because of the environment.
yeah.
There's something different when you walk in the door.
And that's with the chicks.
Yeah.
Like I was training with Sinead Corley, who had a 730 squat, Heidi Hauer, who squatted 617, benched 365, and then deadlifted 505 at 132 for a woman.
Wow.
And then
That's incredible.
Melissa Stevens, which she's just a firecracker in herself. Her husband was a professional fighter. It's like those women are badasses. Like
They're
so, like even that environment, you're good at.
So the women
yourself.
lifters of Westside are like the untold like success story I think
yeah.
of it, especially from the early days. Even the numbers that they put up, it's astronomical in comparison to some others. I think because the dominant nature of powerlifting, it's not popular for women, but the women accomplishment at that place is it's incredible.
Right.
I mean, Laura Phelps, and I mean, you go down the list with Amy and everyone else. Like it it is absolutely insane what the women have done there.
It
So
is.
every time I see some of the records there, I'm like, well, I have 100 pounds on her and she has 100 pounds on me on
Yeah.
squat. You know, like I outweigh her by 100 and she's outlifted me by 100. It's absolutely incredible.
So I squatted there, and like I think I did 600, like I said. And he's like, so when are you coming back? I'm like, well, Lou, I'm in school right now. I'm like, let me go home. Let me see what I can do. Come back. I came back later that summer. I think I came out July 4th weekend.
So going back home, was that Philadelphia area?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I went back home, talking to my family. I'm like, hey, look, this is what Westside is. My mom is like the kindest person. Like, I don't know if Tony ever told you, like, Tony loves my mom because she's like salt of the earth. She's so kind, like loves everybody. And I'm like, I'm gonna go train at Westside. I'm gonna go give it a shot. I'm like, it's 1.5 months, and I promised her, I was like, I'll come back at the end of the summer to go back to school. She's like, okay. She looked up Westside. She's like, you want to go here? I'm like, yeah. And at the time, Westside versus the World came out.
Yeah.
And she's like you could see, she's like had a very hesitation. She's like, you want to go out here? I'm like, yes.
For all the right reasons.
For all the right reasons, yes. So I went back out, or came back out here, July 4th weekend, like I said. And I think there was a meet over at Showtime's place, Nick Showman's gym. And the world record at the time was 650. And he was like, we're going to go get that. I'm like, okay, cool. And just the fact that somebody's like, we're going to go get that, like the confidence he put in you, it's very empowering.
He sees it done before you even know it's an opportunity, right? There's
So-
a lot of power in that too, like believing in someone and seeing something that they can't see yet,
Right.
and then showing them that light. It's really powerful.
And just giving them the chance.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I haven't worked with anybody like you before, so I'm going to put what I know into it,
Right.
and we're going to make this work. So, and having belief in somebody like myself, like I've always had to prove myself, but seeing somebody else believe in me like he did was very powerful. So, I think the meet was August 17th. And I ended up breaking a world record there at 650 was the world record squat.
And that was the first time that you competed?
Yeah.
From Westside?
From Westside,
Yeah.
yeah. I only competed one other time. And I squatted 551, which was the world record. So, like, I didn't want to compete until I know I could break a record. Because for me, like, wherever I go, people are like, oh, good for you. Thanks for coming out. Hey, nice work, nice work. I'm like, dude, I don't want a participation trophy. Like, if I got a participation trophy, you know where that's going? It's going in the trash.
Not even taken out the door.
No, yeah.
100%, yeah.
So I didn't compete, broke the world record at 551, and then I came over to Westside and squatted. After I did that, I had to go back to school. Lou kept in contact with me constantly. Hey, when are you coming back? Lou, I'm about to go take a test. I'm like, you call me back later? He's like, oh, man, you don't need that exercise science. Just come on over here. I'm like,
So would that have been your second year of school then? Or still first year?
So, like, again, for me, school, I drag that shit out. So,
Well, I understand because,
yeah, so I went to community college for 3 years. Then I transferred to Westchester University. And that was horrible because they have a excellent rec center,
Right.
where I would spend most of my time in the rec center.
So you paid for a really, really expensive gym.
Basically,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, I love it.
More expensive gym, and that's where I never studied for any tests, which was horrible. I admit that was a bad idea, but I would pass them because I knew more knowledge about strength training from Lou.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, Lou, what's this? What's this do? He's like, oh, this blah, blah, blah. Okay. So,
That's awesome, though.
yeah.
I can relate to the college, and we'll get back to that later. But keep going with your journey. So you did the meet, under the Westside,
I did
first
the meet,
one,
and then Lou called me up. I think it was mid-October. He's like, hey, we're going to go down to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. You want to come? I'm like, I'm not going to say no, because what I've learned or what I've watched and who I've talked to, it's like, don't ever say no. Like, just
especially to that.
especially to that.
If someone that has accomplished greatness at the highest level is even going to call you,
Right.
let alone care about you, take you under the wing,
Right.
and then put faith in you that you didn't have in yourself, probably, like that's
Yeah.
powerful.
And it's one of those things, it's like we go back to putting the faith into somebody. It's like, you put the effort into me, I'm going to give back and give it back to you.
Yeah.
So he called me. He was like, hey, you want to go down to Murfreesboro? I'm like, sure. He's like, have you been training? I'm like, yeah. And I've been sending videos to him. Well, I haven't, because he doesn't have a fucking smartphone. He has like this old ass phone. So I put it on Instagram. People will show him. And I ended up squatting 655 down there. So I broke another world record. Flew back the next day to go to school. And then a couple months went by. Winter break came. So my winter break was spent out here. I went home Christmas Eve, spent Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, left the day after Christmas, come back out and train, and then did another meet from, squatted 670, benched 315, and then I think I pulled like 295. So broke another world record. Then COVID happened, and this is where I finally moved out. And I was down in Florida with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and she's like, hey, you want to come stay down here? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, fuck no. Like, I know where I want to go, and it ain't here. Yeah. and she's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I think I'm going to go self-isolate. Like, that's what they're calling for. That's what they're calling for. And I go back to PA, and Lou put out a vlog or what have you, and again, it resonated with me. He was like, well, I have Jeremy Smith, I have Wes McCormick, I have Heidi Howard, they're breaking records still, Westside's still alive. And the fact that he brought my name into a gym that is so notorious for world records, over 140 plus world records, and you put my name that, you know, I'm helping you carry your legacy.
And you weren't even really training there full time, like you're part time, right? Basically.
So
which is incredible, by the way, that you were not in that environment and still accelerating that fast just on his guidance.
Yeah.
That's Jeremy, that is something to be proud of. I'm telling you that for sure.
So I told him, I was watching the vlog, and I turned to my dad. I'm like, yo, I'm leaving. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm going over to Columbus. And my dad was all for it. He was like, all right, cool. He's like, you got to talk to your mom about it first. I'm like, okay. And mom, again, salt of the earth, very nice lady, very concerned with my health. She's like, what are you going to do? They're calling, like, all these people are dying. All this is happening. What are you going to do about school? I'm like, look, I'll finish school online while I'm out there, because school went online at the time, and I'll take it day by day. And she's like, what's your plan? And I'm like, honestly, I don't have no plan. Like, I'll just figure it out. So she gave me, like, I kid you not, probably a tote like that full of masks, gloves, everything. I chucked it out of the window, like, on I-70. I'm like, I'm not taking this shit. Like, I can survive anything. Like, if I get sick, it's my fault. Like, I'm whatever. So I come out to Columbus and start training with Lou, and all the gyms were closed at the time. And Lou had everybody put trash bags over the windows with cardboard, and people would knock. He's like, don't answer that. And he's like, why? And it's like, because, like, it could be the cops checking to see if this gym's open or not, blah, blah, blah. But we would train during COVID, and it was hard as fuck to find a meet at the time, because everybody's scared to put on a meet.
All of 2020.
He was bribing people to start meets. He's like, yo, I'll pay for the meet.
Right.
Just let's have meets.
Yeah.
So eventually we had a meet. I think it was over in Coshocton. I forgot what meet it was. It was push pull. I benched 360 and then 400. So I got another spot on the board. I pulled 315 finally. And then I think the upward slope again went from there. I started squatting more. It might have came to July, I think, by that time. He was like, hey, let's go try to be the lightest to squat 700. I'm like, okay. And that was the only goal. We went to Erie and squatted 700 at 123. And then I benched 465, which was supposed to be my second attempt. Benched 465, and I still had a third attempt. He's like, hey, what do you want to do? I'm like, let's go 500.
Absolutely.
He's like, that's a 40-pound jump.
That's
and he was always adamant about making small jumps. I was like, let's go 500, see what happens. Broke 500, became the lightest to squat 500, or bench 500 at 123. Had a sub 1,200-pound total before I even deadlifted at 123, and I've deadlifted 300 and got a 1,500-pound total at 123, which is all right. It's not bad. But still room for improvement. And then
well, just for record, my meet last year, I think I was 14 something at 242. So, like, got 100 pounds on you and 120, and we were the same, right? So nothing but that's absolutely incredible.
And then a couple weeks went by, and I think another meet happened after that. and somebody in Russia broke my 551 world record raw. And I said, Lou, look, and if you don't know Lou is very pro-American. He's like, we build great things here in America. So he's like, we're going to go get that record back. I'm like, Lou.
So he was on board for going back raw? Yeah.
So,
because normally he's not like a big fan of the raw lifting, right? He's like, he's a top field dragster all in. Yeah.
He's like, look, squat in jeans, squat with some type of Carhartt shorts on, kind of have some compression. I'm like, okay. Ended up breaking the raw world record, opened up at 600. Then I squatted 615, 625, and then tried to squat, 635. Then tried to squat I think it was like 640 or 650, because I wanted to be one of the few people that broke a world record 4 times in one day. And I barely missed it. And
that was raw.
That was raw at 132. And then I benched 505 in a shirt because I did a bench only at the same time. So I did a whole meet raw, and then I went back and did bench only so I could bench 505 at 132. And then I boxed the whole time too, because Lou said I couldn't do it. I said, Lou, watch this.
This is absolutely incredible. Like I knew pieces of this, not all like, put together in that, like that time frame. So you did all this, right after moving here full time to Columbus. Talk about, well, first I have to say this. So you benched in a shirt and a squat suit, I'm assuming, when you had gear. Yeah. How difficult was it to get your shirt? Like, did you have to get one custom built, or what was that? Because I know how I've never benched in a shirt, but like with Corey and some of the guys over there, I helped a lot of them out. And getting a shirt to fit is hard for a regular sized person. Right. So touch on that a little bit. Like, what was that like?
So benching in a shirt is very, very different compared to raw.
100%.
I think I benched in at 32, whatever. I don't know what it was, but it was an Inzer Phenom. We started rolling up the sleeves, and it started cutting off the circulation of my biceps. So
and that's why I was wondering, because the compression's so tight up around your pecs. Like, I can't even imagine how difficult that was.
Lou one day just took a butcher knife. I think it was a butcher knife, and just hacked off the sleeves. Yeah. He's like, try this. I'm like, all right. Just benched it, fine. But with a shirt, there's little room for error. You got to find that bubble and just try to pop the bubble and get straight down. So that took some time, but eventually I got used to it. It sucks, to be honest. Like, it's the worst pain I've felt, and I've felt a lot of pain through surgeries and shit. But like the time under tension, it's just like, I can't breathe. I don't like this. But then, okay, cool.
I think if I learned anything from watching guys at Westside bench, an 800-pound bench over there was nothing. It was something that happened a couple times every Sunday. Yeah. I don't know. I think his name was Bart, bigger guy.
Yes,
okay. Yes. So one of the first times that I'd ever spotted someone going over 500 pounds, he was doing like 860 to like a 2-board. And he exploded out of the hole. Whoever was holding the board pulled the board out for him to finish, and he suicide grip, and it slipped out on the side that I was on with 860. And I was underneath of it. I mean, I was like about ready to shit my pants. I was nervous. I was probably more nervous than he was trying to bench it. And it slips out of his hand. I didn't know he was prone to that happening on that side. Like, I had no idea. I was just the man up to spot. So I like have the weight and I catch it, but it's 400 pounds on that side, right? So it like hits me and almost throws me on top of him. I'm terrified. I thought he was dead. Like, I did everything I could to stop it, and then they picked the weight up off of him. And he kind of bounces up. Oh man, that's gonna hurt, and then just went back to normal. Like, he did another set after that.
So for me, the only modification I really wasn't able to make was for the bench. So the bench is the red benches, not the black bench, because that was for the heavyweights. That's for Burley. That's for, JP Carroll at the time was training there. All the dudes that could raw bench 500 pounds, that's their bench. I'm like, okay, cool. So when I had to use a shirt, I used the red benches. Those J hooks only come down to a certain point, and you have to put your hands out wider.
Yep. I was going to ask about that too, because
So I always had to have a 3-man handoff, and I couldn't technically touch the bar until it was in my hands. Like, I could put my middle fingers on it, and that's it. So I trusted my spotters, and I'm like, here, just put it in my hands, and I'll take care of it. They put it in my hands a couple times. Like, I didn't have it. I just dropped it. But put it in my hands, then I would get set, then I would go. And then I would...
That's a completely different dynamic, too, for anyone that doesn't bench press heavy.
Yeah.
Like, the handoff is really just to set it and not get you out of rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to have it handed to you,
Yeah.
then get set
Yeah.
as it's moving. Like that is a completely different bench press.
And then when I locked out, I would still keep my hands on it. So you're going to have an extra probably like 75 pounds because I wasn't going to let go. Because like if you don't have it, I'm still having it. And then they would pull me out of position and then rack it.
That's wild.
So it's a lot of trust in it. It's
Yeah.
like, and people are like, "Are you scared?" I'm like, "No." And one of the quotes I always had for Fridays was like, "You fuck around and you find out. If I get hurt, I get hurt. That's what happens."
So I had a pec injury last year. When I went into that meet, I was maybe 50%.
Okay.
Like complete physical, like bad place. So just had a pec injury, in like April, I think. But when I was at Westside, I had all kind of wrist injuries and all kind of different stuff. And like them little injuries stay with you mentally.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing a 5-rep max and I was doing 385 and I felt real good one Sunday morning. So I'm on my 3rd rep and instead of letting the weight come down, like I'm forcing it, the push and the coming down. Like
Right.
I'm trying to go extra fast so I can get all 5 done. And I think it was the 3rd or 4th rep that I go to push and I came down way too fast. And I don't know if I lightened up my grip or what, but I pushed so hard off my chest, it slipped out of my hands.
Yeah.
And Tony, thank God he was there, but it slips out of my hands probably 12 to 18 inches up. And when it slips up, like I'm fully exposed.
Yeah.
And it comes down right on my rib cage and knocks me out. And one guy that was spotting me didn't do me any favors, let's just say that. And Tony let him hear about it as I'm waking up. He was making sure to let the person know about it. But Tony grabs my arms and lifts them up over my head.
Yeah.
And he's like kind of smacking me in the face to get me, to wake up. Because he didn't know if I punctured a lung or not.
Right.
So he was trying to get me to breathe right away to see if I'm breathing normal. And it was terrifying, dude.
Yeah.
And that hurt 6 or 8 weeks. Like, so I could barely breathe without thinking that, like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
But I never was scared to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Even after the pec injury, I thought, I'm never going to bench 400 again.
That's like, I think we talked earlier about the mental attitude. We talk about, when I was training there were so many guests, and I worked at Westside at the time, and I always answer emails and give Lou the emails that were for him to answer back, and I would write back. But guests were like, "Oh, can I come by?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And they would come by for a weekend. And like, "Man, I wish I could train here all the time." I'm like,
no, you don't.
No, you don't. You know why? Because you couldn't last mentally. Because if you fuck up once, it
can be life or death.
It can be life or death, but it's the fact, like you talked about, it's like coming back and doing it again. Because Heidi Howard, she broke her arm trying to bench 400. Like the bone came out of her, what is
like
it?
forearm?
Yeah, forearm, and came out. And then she came back and benched, I think, 385. It was close to 400, but like, it's the mental attitude. If you fuck up, cool, come back and do it again.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the end of the world, but like, it could be. But like, it's one of those things you just got to come back.
Well, and if it doesn't kill you, then learn from it, right?
Exactly.
So I look at life. I'm very big on being optimistic and positive, no matter what happens in life. If there's a problem in life, it's to me a sign of progress.
Right.
So whenever I'm faced with adversity, okay, I'm doing something that I am outgrowing my current situation. This is a problem now for the next evolution of me as a person.
Right.
Whenever I tore my pec, I was pretty convinced because of the knee injuries. Like I've fought a knee injury my whole entire life. Since I was 16 or 17, I've had nothing but problems. And then I was 2 years into knee rehab, year and a half into knee rehab when I tore the pec. So I'm just starting to finally feel better. Then I tear my pec. The only thing that I had never had an injury on. So I'm devastated. And going into the meet last September, when I seen you, met you there, I hadn't benched over 350 in, I don't know, maybe 6 months or longer. I worked up to 350 and that was it.
Yeah.
And then I ended up opening, I think, at 350. I went 350, 380, and 410. And I'd never thought I would bench press 410 again.
Right.
At first. But then I thought, I'm going to be smart about it. I'm going to come back. And it doesn't matter if I bench 400 again. I'll be more methodical with it. Well, I ended up coming back stronger than I was before because I understand now why I tore the pec.
Right.
And then even with the knee injury, lower back injuries that I've had, I've been able to tie it all together. And I'm back stronger now, and I learned so much from it.
Yeah.
And what I thought was going to be detrimental to me with something I love actually made me stronger.
Yeah.
So I benched 425 at Westside, and I benched 435 here after my pec injury. So I actually PR'd after the injury.
Right.
I never would have guessed that. Completely unforeseen. But it's not about adversity. It's about what you do with it, right?
Yeah, it's
So
about, like, more or less, if you were given these shitty cards, all right, how can I play these cards in my
right.
favor?
So I look at it like this, and I'm sure you can relate to this because of just everything that you've overcame in your life is phenomenal. But you have a problem and a solution, right? 10% of your focus should be on that problem. 90% should be on the solution.
Right.
Because what you put your energy into attracts momentum.
Right.
So if you focus on just the problem, it's going to get bigger. The problem escalates. If you focus on the solution, the problem isn't really going to get any bigger.
Right.
The opportunity to get to the next phase is going to be there, and that's what you're going to focus on. And you've done that. Like every step of your journey has been about, okay, doctor said I can't do this. He said I can't. I'm going to show him I can because I know I can.
Yeah.
Right? It takes a special edge for someone like you to have accomplished so much. And you're 26?
26.
You've accomplished a lifetime worth of achievements tenfold. I mean, honestly, it's really incredible to think about what you've done. And I want to go to this part because part of the reason that, we put this podcast together, part of the reason I wanted you to be on the show, I'm a blue collar guy through and through. I might look pretty and dress up nice and look like the guy that's, the CEO and the suits and ties. I get it.
Right,
Trust me, I get it. I grew up in blue collar nation. I know what the thought is going to be of me. A lot of people don't know who I am and what I've been through to get where I'm at. And it's not even to tell people that story. I want other people to understand what is possible in a blue collar industry of construction workers, pipeliners, whatever it may be. There is a better and a different way than what the industry says.
Right.
Drink coffee, pop, or whatever until it's time to drink alcohol, right? That's standard in our industry.
Right.
Dehydration is a huge thing. We talked about that earlier. People don't have the basic concept of just the impact of water. I always, and I know you run equipment, right? Or grew up running equipment or been around it. So running equipment's my true love. That's what got me in the industry.
Fun.
I have videos of me at like 5 years old running a full-size track car.
That's awesome.
I'll show them to you after. It's actually pretty comical. But that was my love from childhood. So if you don't ever grease your equipment, it doesn't move very well,
work
right?
Yeah.
Your body's the same way with water.
Yeah.
But something that simple, people just don't understand the impact it could have. Instead of drinking a pop or even a diet pop, like water alone,
It's better for you.
dude.
And the food aspect too. People who eat out all the time, like, I have guys that I work with, and they're like, "Hey, let's go out to eat for lunch." I'm like, one, that's costly. I ain't going
The
to
financial
do that.
part's the sneaky
I ain't
part.
going to
Yep.
do that. And two, the options that you are getting from eating out are horrible. Like, all right, what's the quick best option? Let's go get McDonald's. Why would you want to get that? Like, why? It doesn't benefit you any better.
I haven't had that kind of. I mean, it's been forever.
Yeah.
I don't eat like fast food. I redialed in my discipline like 7 weeks ago with Corey's Busy Diet. And I feel better now than I've ever felt my entire life. And the side effect of me dialing in the discipline with the diet is my gut health was the reason why that I was really after it, because I've had gut issues my whole life. I've dropped 15 pounds of really like 12 or 15 pounds of fat.
Without trying.
Yeah. I have not changed anything but my diet.
Yeah.
But mentally, what I'm capable of now compared to 6 or 7 weeks ago, I would have never had guessed the change there because of how disciplined I am. And it's not an emotional response, like going to the gym. It's just what you do, right?
Yeah.
Talk about that. Talk about it not being emotional.
So I think more or less it's just, we talk about getting into a routine, and you wake up, you go to the gym, if you eat healthy and you stay in a consistent routine, it's just how would you say it? Like,
it's accelerating like your life. So powerlifting, right? You did all these things and you stay disciplined for however long, and you achieve greatness before you achieve greatness.
Right.
But staying disciplined, staying consistent, the building blocks of, going to the gym, showing up on the days you don't want to.
Right.
Most important day to go to the gym is the days you absolutely don't want to.
And that carries over to everything you do.
Look what it led to for you.
Yeah.
You're preparing yourself for your next opportunity. You don't even know it's there yet.
Yeah.
Like Louis Simmons taking you under his wing, and you going to Westside Barbell. And then you mentioned the Barstool Sports, the boxing opportunity. Like all of that probably stemmed from years of preparation.
Yeah.
What we do now isn't for today or tomorrow. It's for 6 months or 12 months from now, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't know we need it yet, but there's a certain level of discipline that you're going to take, like I did 7 weeks ago. And I had no idea, like, it would transform into what it is now. But I'm really glad I did, because there's things that happened in that time frame that would have been really difficult to handle before that if I would have not been already dialed in.
Yep. Just take the first step. Like, the easiest thing to do is just show up. Like, I think that's what's horrible for guys, or bad for guys. It's like, you show up late to work, you show up late to a meeting, you show up late to all these things. It's like, dude, just have the discipline to show up. Or at least show up. Don't not show up.
Yeah.
Because I think, showing up to the gym, showing up to practice, showing up to whatever you do, just take that first step, and then, take it day by day, hour by hour, half hour by hour, whatever you need to do. Take it, break it up to the point where you can function.
The world record every day isn't going to happen. Sometimes, like yesterday, I walk into the gym. My knee has been fine here recently, but it's swelled up bad. I actually had a knee brace on all night, and I woke up and it's got fluid all around. I don't know why, but Thursday was the day that I was going to squat. And the week before I did a lot of single leg stuff because of the same thing, like trying to still continue this rehab process to some degree.
Right.
The last thing I wanted to do was squat, and just squatting down on a slant board hurt, like physically hurt. Yeah. But what did I do? I didn't just back away from it. I said, you know what? I came in here to squat, and I think I went up to 3 or 350 and did a couple singles and then stopped. But I didn't break any record. I didn't do any PR. But I showed up and I got under the bar.
Right.
And I walked out with my head up because I did it.
Yeah.
And that was the last thing I wanted to do that day.
And you feel better because of it too. You're like, all right, maybe I can, I figured out what my body can handle. Cool. All right. And the next time this comes around, we're going to figure out what else we can handle.
Right.
I think one time we got this new monolift over at Westside, and we were changing out the black one, and we got the red Westside Mammoth monolift. Well, nobody checked to see if it went down for me, like the squat on it. So Lou was like, well, we're squatting. You got to figure it out. I'm like, all right, cool. So we had to rig all these boxes up and band squat. Now I'm about probably Jake's height right now, squatting with the same band tension Jake's probably have and then Lou doesn't cut you any slack. Same weight. You got to use the same weight. Bands don't change. I'm like, what do you mean bands don't change? Like, of course they change. So I'm squatting probably with more band tension on these two sketchy boxes, squatting to a box. It's like, this sucked, but, you did it, figured it out, cool, move on from it.
And there's so many, parallels to life and weightlifting. I have a few different businesses, and it's like relating the iron game and what happens in the war room of the iron is almost like a boardroom, There's so many parallels where, I tear pec. Well, I have all these issues afterwards. My CNS is completely shut down. Like, I couldn't go bench 135 if I wanted to 2 weeks before my meet. I called Tony. I'm like, Tony, I'm in bad shape, dude. What do I do? And he talks about resetting CNS with a float tank or going to the pool. Yep. And I went inside an oxygen chamber like 4 or 5 days in a row the week before. I didn't train for 2 weeks going into that meet. Yeah. I had to worry about my mental, place, because my CNS said, no, you're not doing this. No. So I went and reset, go into the meet, and I'm good. Yeah. But I know that if I have a business situation with, accounting or taxes, I'm going to call my CPA. Yeah. If I know that I'm having an injury with lifting heavy weight, I'm going to call Corey, one of the guys in the 4 a.m. crew, one of the guys I trained with at Westside, because they're going to know the answer. They've been through this before. Your network, in business and life, having a well-rounded, diverse group of people that have been through different things and seen different areas of struggle and overcame it, completely powerful. And we kind of talked about, I'll show you, show me your friends and I'll show you your future earlier. Right. So let's talk about that. Talk about the network of people you have around you and the encouragement that it's had for you, and then what it's going to do for other people.
So I think for me, I'm a very old soul. So all the people that I'm friends with are older than I am, because I always want to constantly learn. And I think, we talked about you reach out to friends and ask for help. I think with my generation, they're afraid. Well, they think they know everything, which that's a very false statement.
Yeah.
Listen, you don't know everything.
You don't know anything if you think you know everything.
Right. So, I have very wise group, a very tight, small group of friends around me that are older, and they all own businesses. They all try to steer me in the right path. They always are critiquing what I do. They're like, "You went out and did that last night?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "What that accomplish for you?" They're like, what time did you go to bed last night? 10 o'clock. Why did you do that? Why don't you go to bed 7:30? Well, I wanted to watch the football game. It's like, dude, was that football? Like, they'll tell you things. Like, it almost feels like, since I have older friends, you're in the matrix and like step back to like, look, let me give you some advice. Does that football game change anything in your life tomorrow? I'm like, no. But if you get a better sleep tonight, will you know,
add 20 pounds to your squat tomorrow morning.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, let's try it. And it works out. And same thing with like, hey, just the bits and pieces of advice your circle can bring you is very helpful. Like, I think we talked about like business and Lou, and like I heard with you and Corey talking about how Lou is such a great businessman. Like, people don't realize that.
No.
Like, when the time I spent with Lou, he was like, look, you want to make money? Here's the easiest way to make money. Have a business that can make you money 24/7.
Make money while you're sleeping.
Yes. And I'm like, oh shit. He's like, yeah. Like, nobody's really thought about it. How are you going to do that till 95? Like, you can't. Like, got to keep working. So it's that small group of people that you just got to have yourself around.
If you have a large group of people, then I would question the quality of people around you, right? There's really two kinds of people. Wise people who think they're fools or, stay quiet. And then fools who think they're wise, right? Like, I know the most outspoken people I've ever met that tell you how great they are haven't achieved anything in life. They want to manufacture this belief that they have done that. And most of the time, the people that are sitting in the back of the room, they're very reserved and quiet, are the ones that are normally the highest accomplishers. And I don't strive to be interesting, I guess. I want to be interested. I want to be interested in Jeremy Smith. And like today is powerful for me because I'm learning something about somebody that I've only met you one time, I think, in person. We have a mutual friend, but I'm going to consider you a brother after this, because we have a mutual friend, but a connection with the industry and like what we've seen in the industry. But I have a ton of respect for you. I'm inspired by what you've accomplished. It actually blows my mind, to be honest with you, because I cannot imagine what you've had to overcome in your life. And then to accomplish stuff at such a high level, you should be proud, man. I'm telling you, you really should be. Like your mindset. So the iron builds your mindset. It builds your infrastructure, your internal infrastructure. So I have a newsletter called The Pipeline of Prosperity, right? And I mentioned it to you earlier, but it's all about feeding your pipeline to achieve success. That's essentially what it is. Prosperity is successful or thriving. And your pipeline, your personal pipeline. So let's talk about what you put in your personal pipeline to achieve prosperity. So personal development, you mentioned a few things. Are you like an audiobook guy? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you sit down and read? What are the things that you do to develop yourself?
For me, honestly, I read. As a Man That Thinketh. You ever read that book? It's a perfect book, one of my favorite books. Lou always gave me Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It's one of his favorite books. Books for me helped a lot. Can I read chapters at a time? No, because I got to be honest, I ain't that smart. But if I read pages at a time, I can break it down and but put it into my everyday life. Podcasts. I like Joe Rogan's podcast, not because obviously it's just Joe Rogan and fanboy over Joe Rogan, but the aspect of the fact that he brings so many people's all walks of life under there, and then you have a long road trip, or you're working at work.
And he's not willing to be bought.
Right.
He's authentic through and through.
Right. So all the
same with Dana White. Like Dana White don't give a shit about your opinion, right?
So all those people that he brings on, it opens my eyes to what actually the world is, and not living in my little box, and still it's like meditation helps for me. Like for a minute there when I was training at Westside, the worst thing was, you would break a world record, and then it's like the next day it's like, cool, what do we can do next? And it's like you're always looking for the future, but where you should be is in the present and in the present moment. And my mind was so rattled, so fucked with like stress and anxiety. And finally, I had some friends that turned me on. I was like, look, go do some meditation. Go find your inner peace.
Yeah,
inner
100%.
peace, and, focus on where you're at today, focus in being in the moment, and I think
being
that's fun.
present is
Yes.
tough.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to take it to commercial break real quick. We're going to take a real quick break, and I want to go back to being present.
Cool.
This episode is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. For all your supplement needs, go to maxeffortmuscle.com. All right, so we're back from commercial break, and I wanted to get back into talking about being present. So this is something I struggle with. I am a very high-strung, active, take action immediately, sometimes good, majority of the time not so good. You know, I create a lot of chaos within the organization that I am part of, and I'm not overly methodical with the thought of it. I can't develop it. I can envision it, and then, you know, really need other people like a Treadway in this podcast to see it through to become something. Right. But I have a vision on something that I'll take action on it fairly quick, especially if I'm sold on it. The podcast was something that I came up with in like 20 minutes with probably 2 months of subconscious thought, right? But being present's very, very difficult. What I've realized, though, is like you at Westside Barbell, the time there, me walking into old school gym every day, it's going to end eventually, right? We're all going to die. Yeah. It's inevitable. Yeah. One thing in life that is fact is we're not going to live forever. So enjoying the moment and being in that moment is something that I've spent a lot of time trying to focus on, because if you continue to not appreciate the moment, when you get to that next accomplishment, you don't appreciate it either. So I don't know if you know much about my story, and I'll make it quick, but from 18 to 30, I spent time working in the field. I became a foreman at 23, 24. And really at that point was really when I set out this goal to own Arnold Pipeline by the time I was 30. No rhyme or reason. I didn't go to college. I decided instead of spend 20 grand a year on going to college and drinking, I'll still go to college and drink, but I'll just go work and make 20 grand a year, right? Same mindset as you. I wasn't willing to go because I wasn't willing to pay for it. And for whatever reason, I just put my head down. I had one focus and one focus only, and I accomplished this goal. I was not very present during that whole time because I had this goal to achieve, and I thought, man, when I get there, I'm going to feel so much better. Saturday, we closed on Friday, May 24th, 2019, we closed on the deal. Me and my business partner and our wives went out to celebrate on Saturday, and Sunday morning I woke up, and I had never felt anxiety before, really. In general, I don't really get anxiety at all, but I felt like heavy weight and not relief, because it wasn't, man, I just bought this company. Oh shit, I just bought this company. And at the time it was 60 families, you know, we employed 60 people and their families. It's like, now I'm responsible for that. There was no relief. And I didn't enjoy the journey until after it was done. I remember throughout the deal, we had a bank that was committed to us. We had a closing date. We're within probably a month of closing on the transaction. The bank calls and just drops us randomly. No rhyme or reason, no heads up. And we had to start completely over. And we're sitting there, me and my business partner with our attorney, Jim Havens, and he's like, man, isn't this fun? Because he had already been in the war room. And I'm sitting here like 12th round, 30 seconds left. I'm beat to hell. My eyes swollen up in the boxing match. Like, I can't even think about getting up right now. And he's like, man, isn't this fun? And at the time, I wanted to give him a right uppercut, right to the mouth, because I was like already somewhat defeated. But it kind of snapped me out of it to make me present for just a second. I didn't realize how powerful that was until after, because I was not in the moment. Looking back now, that was the defining moment of my journey, where I went from sacrificing everything. So the logo of the Iron Infrastructure, you know, it's a 45-pound plate, but I put 37K on the logo. And I don't know if you noticed that, but that was my net worth whenever we closed on the purchase of Arnold Pipeline.
That's pretty cool.
So my net worth was $37,000, and we bought a multi-million-dollar company.
That's awesome.
Then to say the odds were astronomical would be an understatement, but the story of it is anything's possible, right?
Exactly.
But enjoy the journey.
I think too, for me, training at Westside, and you train so hard to get to a point, like you said, you're not aware of the journey. And then when that journey ends, in the blink of an eye, you're like, what just happened? Like, it feels like you blacked out. You're like, holy, like when I trained at Westside until Luke passed away, I started in 2019. and he passed away in 2022. That's like 3 years, 3 years. It's like in any other space and time, 3 years feels like forever. But like it's just like that.
Like you woke up, you took a piss, drank a cup of coffee, blinked your eyes, and next thing you know, it's done.
And he always told me, because I remember sitting down late at night one time. He's like, dude, you need to be more present. Like he could see that, like, obviously he put pressure on me to keep doing better and better and better. And I think it got to me where it's, okay, I squatted 700, let's go 800. That's 100 pounds away, but like, how are you going to do that? And I'm already planning out workouts months in advance when I haven't even focused on the workout at hand.
Yeah.
And I think being present now, especially in, the construction industry, it's a life or death thing. If you're not present in the moment with some of the stuff we do,
100%.
you could put other people's lives at jeopardy. You could put your own life at jeopardy. It's one of those things. It's be here in the moment right now. And I think too, what I realized is when you're in the moment, you can actually see things. Like you could see all the other people that aren't in the moment and they're like playing on their phones or taking Instagram photos or doing this. And I think for me, I recently took a step away from social media because I realized, all right, I'm taking a picture to what? Post it on social media? Cool. Like you're here because you want to enjoy the moment. You're not here to grab a picture. You're not here to show everybody what you're doing. That's cool. But like, are you enjoying being here?
Are you present?
Are you enjoying the people around you? And I think, I forget who had told me to do this, but I started printing out my pictures. So like when you had the whole like film and stuff, you print out the pictures because a picture back then, that was a memory. That was it. That you look back in the picture. And
because it was tangible.
Yes. And you could say, oh, I remember this time we did this, we did that, we went on that vacation. Whereas now I feel like pictures are undervalued and you're like
true, like pictures. Yeah.
Right. So it's,
I love that because my daughter, we took her to Florida the beginning of October. She turned 6.
Okay.
So I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, 2 girls, and we got my daughter a Polaroid camera. And so she just loves it. She wants to take pictures all the time, so she'll come over and take a picture. And every time she take a picture, I know it's going to get tore up because the 2-year-old's like a Tasmanian devil. Shit's going to hit the fan. I already know it. So as soon as she takes it, I'll take a picture of it on my phone, just so I have it, because I know what's going to eventually happen. It's probably not going to last. But I have videos from my childhood that my mom would have this big old VHS thing, like taking video, and I can reflect on that now. If I wouldn't have that, there's a lot about my childhood I wouldn't be able to remember because of the pictures, right? So it's so different now. We try not to do these things to be present because our phones are a distraction.
They're huge.
And I'm reminded of that quite frequently. Like I get distracted with my business or trying to research this issue that I have, or it's not that I'm doing anything wrong, but I'm not present. And so I'm kind of going the other way where, like for me, I have been fairly isolated and not outspoken about where I'm at, what I've done, or who I am at all. And, with Corey and with Treadway, Corey hit on it a few years ago. He's like, you're really, he called it scrapbooking, but documenting your journey, right? So you're showing people who you are to help them see that everything is possible if you put your mind to it. But there's a point in time, like with what you're saying, that you're showcasing all this to show other people what's possible, but you're not present enough to enjoy life.
You're not doing it for yourself. At the end of the day, you should always put yourself first, and then help everyone else that you can.
You just hit on something that I have to touch on this because this is one of the most powerful things I think people need to understand. You have to be selfish. 100%. You have to do the things that make you the best you. And I reference this frequently. And I don't know if you've ever heard this or thought about it, but we all have a superhero growing up. So growing up, it's a Spider-Man, Batman, or a family member, whatever it is. But my superhero is me in 10 years or 15 years. If I put my faith and trust into someone else solely, they can let me down. But if I do what I need to do and be selfish for me and wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning when I don't want to, but I go and I do what I need to do at the gym and I prepare myself for that day, I have to put myself first, because if not, I'm giving everyone else around me lesser valued me. So for me to have my maximum value, I have to take some time for myself first in the morning. And normally it's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
You don't want to get out of bed at 3 o'clock. I don't want to
No.
get out of bed at 3 o'clock, right?
No.
We don't want to do these things. We have to do these things. It's
But
not an emotional response.
I think too, for me, I enjoy doing that because it's like all right, nobody else is doing this, but I'm doing it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting out at 3 o'clock, but I'm putting the work in for myself. And like, you know, obviously you're a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
but for me as a young adult, putting the work in for yourself is different than putting the work in for somebody else. It's like, I'm going to go work for somebody else right now, but the gratification that you have for putting the work in for yourself and seeing yourself improve. Because I think that's why I like construction too. It's like one day you can start building something and 3 months down the line you see, all right, this is what
tangible.
I made. Right. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with yourself. The self-improvement aspect of working
Personal
on,
development is the most
Yeah.
powerful thing that is I've ever dove into. I'm obsessed with it now.
Yeah.
But building your pipeline, right?
Yeah.
What's your pipeline look like? What are you doing to achieve prosperity? And especially in blue collar world, it's foreign.
Yeah.
And probably, I don't know if you've experienced this, but like I used to read books or do personal development instead of going to happy hour at Applebee's when I was out of town on the road. Or I go walk on the treadmill and do personal development, listen to a book. And people gave me hell for that.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I'm like, the guy that was giving me hell hasn't advanced at all from where he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm where I'm at now because of that. And it's like, why is that the narrative? What's your thoughts on that? Because I don't get it from a construction blue collar industry as a whole.
I think I dealt with that going to college because I never really went out to the bars in college. I always went to train, but especially in the blue collar industry, it's like a different type of breed. Like you can't beat something into somebody's head that if they don't understand it, don't want to put in the time and effort for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, they're just trying to escape their reality, and their reality in their escape might be through drugs, might be through alcohol. But it might suck, putting in the work for yourself for a minute, but eventually you'll see it. And I think people are afraid to
put faith into something they can't see immediate return on.
Exactly, nothing tangible. They can't, they know that drug or alcohol can give them some tangible, like hold it
right now.
Yes. Yeah. Whereas if you invest in yourself, the next 6 months, see where you'll be. Like and the craziest thing is, like you said, surround yourself with the people. I've cut people out of my life that I realized it's like, you are causing me more stress.
If you don't bring value to my life, I don't have any use for you. It doesn't even matter if it's family.
And in putting my life on hold or putting my life in your hands to hope that you have the best, or hoping you're wishing for the best for me, like you're putting me in the right direction. That's a very trustworthy thing to do. And I'm not saying I lost trust in everybody, but like I'd rather trust myself than a lot of other people.
Trust but verify.
Yes.
I'll trust someone until they give me a reason not to, but I'm going to verify that trust and check on what they say.
Yes.
Right. I've been that way for a while. And I actually had a financial advisor that had referenced that statement, and I took that because that hit me. Like I understood, I'm going to trust this person, but I'm going to make sure they're doing what they say they're going to do. Because if they're not, like, I want to know. I don't want to be blindsided. I'd rather be, seeing it as I'm trusting them and then know that I can't trust them.
Yeah.
But you cannot fake being a genuine person. I've really found this out in the last year or so. Genuine people that really care about others, it's almost like you can feel it on them.
Yeah.
You can tell. You can't fake it. There is no hiding it or fake it till you make it. You either do or you don't.
Yes.
Because the people that genuinely don't care about other people, it's gonna expose itself very quick. And knowing that this person says they care doesn't matter. Right. It's what do you show me?
What are your actions?
What are your actions? Show me how you talk. Right. Like, action is a word. Action and commitment are probably the two of the biggest words as far as powerful to me. So I know a lot of people that have a lot of goals and dreams and aspirations and all these great ideas that take no action and don't accomplish anything. Right. For me, if I have an idea, I cannot sit on it. I obsess over it. I have to take immediate action. But it doesn't mean that I'm trying to see the end right now.
Right.
I'm just taking one step.
Right.
And that leads into commitment, where you talked about, reading 10 pages of a book or whatever, maybe a day. You don't need to read a book a day.
No.
You just need to read a little bit of a book a day, right?
Right.
Just get a little bit better every day. And then once you put that into motion, then it'll accelerate into, the compound effect of, I read 10 pages this day or this month or this 6 months. Now I'm going to 15. Oh, I found a book I really like. Now it's 25. Now it's 50. Right. And it's just like that continue growth. And then you just continue to evolve.
It's gradual. Like nobody squats 700 pounds overnight.
No. You got to squat 600 first, right?
Yeah.
You got to squat 500. So everybody starts somewhere. And I think the biggest thing that people get so bent out of shape on is the actual commitment to doing something different.
Right.
It's not like one day I'll do this. Is day one. Make today day one. Take one step in the right direction. And that's it.
And even having the courage to do something different rather than the normal routine. Because your normal routine ain't working for you, bud. Like,
no.
You see the people getting up drunk already in the 7 o'clock hour. It's like, dude, what are you doing with your life? Why don't you fix
I think
that?
it's ironic, like New Year's, right? So New Year's Eve, everyone goes out and celebrates and drinks and does all that. And then you wake up a new year, hungover, sleeping in. That's how you start a new year, right? And I'm all for having a good time. Like, don't get it wrong. I enjoy having a bourbon and cigar as much as anyone else, but it's more like a mental impact.
Right.
Like I'm starting off 2024, new year, new me bullshit, right? Well, you're starting off the same way you did the last 3 years, and you haven't accomplished anything in the last 3 years you set out to. And that's why New Year's resolutions, whenever people were getting into the fourth quarter of the year, the last 3 months, when someone's like, yeah, next year I'm going to start this diet or do this plan, why don't you start tomorrow?
Yeah, why don't you start now?
Then you'll be that far ahead, and then you can commit to the next step by that time.
Well, I got this going on. It's like, yeah, shut up.
Right. You have this going on in your life, but then Jeremy Smith over here is squatting 700 plus pounds. Right?
It just starts somewhere. You got to have faith in yourself.
So I think that's, you keep touching on so many things that I just love referencing, but, you get a commitment to being better.
Right.
I just want to be better.
Yeah.
In whatever realm it is, I have to commit to being better, and I'm going to take one step in that direction. I don't need to take 10 steps. I need to take one step. It said, 21 days to create a habit. Create one habit of change.
Yeah.
And my main commitment for people in the blue collar industry, drink water.
Yeah.
That's it. Get you a jug of water and drink it.
Yeah.
Don't change anything else. Just drink that water.
Yeah.
And 21 days, come back to me and tell me how you feel. I guarantee your life is going to be different.
Yep. And too, I forget who said it. Was it Jordan Peterson? It's like, when you wake up, just make your bed, dude. That's the easiest thing you can do.
Yeah.
Make your bed.
Yeah. And it's such a small task, right? But what happens is that compound effect of accomplishment.
Yeah.
And then feeling that accomplishment.
Yeah.
And once you feel that accomplishment, it's like, I committed to this. I didn't, you can commit to something and have faith in it, but it doesn't mean you're capable of doing it or have courage or having confidence. But if you commit, then you develop some, capability and then some courage, and then you end up being confident.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the next thing comes around, you're confident because you just accomplished something.
Right.
And it's like that revolving door of accomplishment. And now, for you, it's endless. Right. There is no ceiling, right?
No.
So what's next? What's next for Jeremy?
So honestly, I want to open up my own, obviously I'm an apprentice right now. So eventually when I turn out, I want to have my own sheet metal company. And then, to be quite frank, I want to get a piece of land somewhere down in Pickaway County because it's flat. I love how flat it is. And I want to open up a farm. So I've told many people this, and I tell people all my ideas because ain't nobody going to do them.
Because they don't care about them
they
like you.
Don't care. And that's what Lou told me all the time. I'm like, Lou, why do you share so much information? He's like, because fuck, these lazy asses aren't going to do this shit.
Right.
But I want to get a piece of land, and I want to have a farm, and it's going to be a mini farm. So it's going to have Scottish Highland cows, mini horses, pygmy goats, the teacup pigs. Mm-hmm. And what I want to do with it is, when I grew up, I was raised around farm animals, and it's very intimidating for other people, especially with disabilities, to go around farm animals if you haven't been around them already. So what I want to somehow do is partner with the Ohio State agricultural community and somehow incorporate them and then incorporate like kids with Down syndrome, kids with autism, and get them into seeing what like farm life is.
That's incredible.
And then have that working in and of itself. Now that's down the line. I still live in an apartment right now, but that's the future. That's the plan that I want to accomplish. Lifting goals wise, I think I would love to start training some kids. I have one kid right now, Anthony, local sheet metal buddy's son, that I'm helping train. But I just do.
Are you so as far as competing? Are you done competing, or do you know what's next on that? Because you've accomplished so much. At some point, like you want to help other people with your knowledge, right?
I want to help other people.
But you're still young too.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I want to help other people. A lot of dwarfs are starting to get into the powerlifting community, which would be awesome if I can, have a dwarf only seminar. But there's only few and far between of us. I think training wise, people always ask what's the next step in regards to competing. Lou, and it goes back to trust. When you handle that much weight, you're putting a lot of trust into somebody else, helping you program, helping you call your depth, calling that stuff. So me and Lou are very close like that, and I don't know if there's anybody else yet that I have came across. I've trained with Tony, but Tony, me and Tony just trained to bullshit around and stay active, stay looking good for the ladies.
Yeah.
But it's like to compete, it's a lot of trust, a lot of dedication, and I think I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in letting people see what can be possible, and hopefully people can break that world records, because it's just a name on a board. Tony's always told me it's like when he got his name on the board, that was the worst thing that happened to him at Westside, and it's true. It's like that's a lot of weight on your shoulders and a lot of anxiety, and hopefully somebody else can break that record and get that off my shoulders.
Well, but here, it is because it's such a high accomplishment, right? But the message that you can now help other people with, if you never compete again, you've made your mark on history.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like you are a legend in what you have accomplished. So what impact can you have on other people? Right. Like you saying all that's absolutely incredible. We'll talk after this because I want to help you out with it. I think it's absolutely phenomenal what you want to do, because you took adversity head on your whole entire life and did what is impossible. Right. You overcame what is impossible and showed people that nothing is impossible. So
not to cut you off, but like we talk about the blue collar and what's possible, what's not possible. I got just a quick story. When I used to work for Westside. I got fired from Westside, and Lou's like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "I want to weld. I want to do like some welding." He's like, "Okay." Lou actually took me to a trade school to go sign up, and he was like, "All right, let's go find you what to do." I'm like, all right, went in, signed up. Well, obviously they weren't going to get back to me until the next year, and I couldn't wait for that. So I signed up with Local 189, which is the ironworkers local, and they called me, and they're like, "Hey, you want to come try out?" I'm like, because you have to try out. You can't just sign up for the ironworkers. That's a different breed. I show up, and they look at me right away. They're like, "What the fuck just walked in here?" And I'm like, "Yep, hello." And, there's a whole week training course, and I really enjoyed it. But one thing they had a concern with was, like, at the end of the week, they're like, "You think you could do this?" I'm like, "Yeah." But with iron, you got to tie off, and there's one set tie-off point. You ain't going to change it because your ass is on the iron. You got to fucking tie off at the same spot everybody else does. And I was like, "Look, I understand. Like, I'm not the tallest dude, but I'll figure it out, and I'll make a way." But with the iron workers, it's the faster the building goes up, the faster everything else can get in place and do that. So I understood why I couldn't get that. But it's the next thing, all right, I couldn't work with that in welding, so I'm going to go to sheet metal and weld.
But it didn't stop you.
Right. Yeah. So I'm going to enjoy what I'm doing and figure out the path. It's not, you just keep rolling with the punches. That's all it is.
Failure is not a stop. Right. It is a growth opportunity. Quitting is failure to me.
Yes.
So if I quit something that I want, I failed. Yeah. But losing is a learning opportunity, and that's how I have looked at life, because there's a lot of things that I've done that I did not win, that I lost at. but I assess it as a learning opportunity and overcome it and then win the next time.
Right.
Like the pec tear, I can't bench 350. I'll never bench 400 again.
Right.
The meet you're at, I bench 410. That learning curve and understanding psychologically that I might never be right again, but not accepting it. I didn't accept to be the failure because I didn't quit.
Yeah.
I failed that lift. I tore that pec, but I didn't quit. I came back, and then I accomplished what I didn't think I'd ever accomplish again. Even myself, being how like confident I am in what I'm capable of, just being relentless in your pursuit of greatness. And it might just be getting up tomorrow and going to the gym.
Yeah.
And it might be walking on the damn treadmill for 10 minutes and then leaving, but getting up and doing the thing. Whether you want to be a powerlifter, 11-time world record holder, whether you want to own businesses, or you just want to get kids to school safely as a school bus driver, right? Being confident in your ability to be great in whatever it is you want to do. We're not competing against each other for what we want to accomplish personally, right? We're competing against ourselves.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what your aspirations are, just have them.
Yeah.
You know, and then try to achieve it.
Right.
That's the ultimate goal. It's finding joy in what you do, joy in your passion, and then whatever that passion is on you to figure out and to accomplish it. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
No. And the people that do talk shit, it's like, all right, what are you doing with your life?
Show me what you've done. Show me your resume.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, you go to work, they go to the bar, they go to sleep, and they repeat.
Right.
It's like, that's some life, bud.
So if someone's going to criticize me, I'm more than willing to take criticism from someone that I'm asking their opinion on, right? But Blue Collar Nation, you know, might come after me and tell me that I'm an idiot for doing what I'm trying to do now. Show me your resume then.
And then show them, it's like, all right, well, come back to me in 6 months, and I'll show you what I've improved on.
And then dare them to do the same. Like drink water for 6 months straight, and then tell me how you feel after.
Yeah.
You know, I started at R&R Pipeline with a shovel in my hand for $9 an hour in 2007. And in 2019, 12 years later, I bought the company. Whenever I talk to people and tell them anything is possible, I truly believe that, and I truly mean it. And I know that what I have done would not be possible if I wouldn't have been different.
Right.
Same as you.
Yeah.
Like, you're not different because of being short.
Right.
You're different because you are mentally calloused and relentless in your pursuit to get what you want.
Right.
That's what makes you different.
Yeah. Tell me I can't do something.
The best words of encouragement I've ever had.
It's also like a really double-edged story because you tell me I can't do something, I'll fuck myself
I know.
up.
Oh, I know. Me too. Yeah. I'm the same way. I'm not like that anymore. Sometimes Treadway will chirp at me every once in a while. I came in here, I think last year on a Tuesday, and I didn't bench that morning with the crew. I benched in my house, and I did 315 with a red for single, like 10 sets of singles on bench. And they did a 3-board that day, and he got like 435 on a 3-board. Nice. So he's talking all kind of shit, and I came in. I'm like, Treadway, I could do that. Like with 1 or 2 warm-up sets, I could get that. Well, just so happened, like he kept chirping at me for probably an hour as I was in here, and I'm dressed up in business clothes, like I came in for something else business related. Then I was going to walk out, and the high school crew's here lifting, and he wouldn't quit chirping at me about it because he was wanting to take that W that day. And I went out and benched 440 after like 3 or 4 sets to a 3-board after warming up. And I won, but I didn't really win anything because it hurt like hell. I never even told him that until now. But sometimes you just got to show up.
You got to do that stuff.
Got to do that, yeah. It keeps life interesting for sure.
It does.
But, man, I'll tell you what, this has been an absolute honor and a privilege. I really appreciate you coming on. And I just want to tell everyone out there, Blue Collar Nation, and anyone in the world, look at Jeremy, what he's accomplished. Like a 1% of 1% would be an understatement for what you've done, man. I tell you what, like it really is inspiring to see your accomplishments at such a young age.
Thank you.
Like it's mind-boggling to me. Not only that you're 26, but that you've accomplished so much in this time frame, and that you want to take your accomplishment and help other people out.
Right.
I think that's the most powerful thing. You want to really help other people, build their pipeline, right?
Yep.
So I can't thank you enough for coming on. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
I know you said you're kind of off of social media right now, but what are your social media handles if you want to put them out there?
So I got J Smith Fitness or JSmith_fitness on Instagram, And I think I just got Jeremy Smith Fitness on TikTok. Try to get on TikTok. I'm not doing any dances or anything, but I'm just posting my regular everyday life and just posting more about me, kind of not really about lifting, what I'm doing, riding dirt bikes, riding, ATVs.
Create awareness about what you're doing because it's greatness.
I think I put myself in a box with just the J Smith Fitness part. It's like, look, I do all this other.
You're so much
shit.
more than that, and like the iron and infrastructure. That's what I wanted to touch on before we hopped on the mic. It's not just blue collar industry and lifting weights. It's so much more than that. Iron is a core building block for lifting weights, for buildings, for bridges.
Right.
Iron builds infrastructure.
It does.
In society, it builds you physically, mentally. Like it builds so much, and your infrastructure can be. It's all about development, right? And there is no box that I'm going to be put in with the Iron Infrastructure podcast. It's so much more impactful though when I can relate to someone's story as far as blue collar and lifting. Outside of that though, I mean, your accomplishments are so much higher than what I can ever dream to accomplish in the weightlifting and all the other realms. So
anything's possible.
Anything's possible. That's right.
Possible.
You just got to believe it. This episode is brought to you by Corey G Fitness. Go to CoreyGFitness.com for all your training, nutrition needs, personal development, enhanced lifestyle. CoreyGFitness.com.